It is that time of the month again. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Finest Fridays. You know what time it is. It is the end of the month, and that means it is a brand new time for a discussion. For this time, we got three DC Finest, and of course, I am Dom of X, associate editor of comicreleases.com, and to my right is none other than one of my best buds, and that is none other than Kurtis Finley. How are you doing, my friend?
I am doing just fine, Dom. Nice to see you again. It's been a busy month, but I was able to sneak in some reading now and then. Most of my reading is done while I'm eating breakfast.
Oh, I
Actually, that's
see.
when I get to read these books.
Have you ever accidentally spilled like milk or like some food on your books? Has that ever happened?
Sometimes it splashes a little bit. Nothing too bad. No.
Okay, well, that's not too bad. Honestly, like I have tried doing that before. And this was back when I was a kid. Like this was, not DC Finest, but obviously different books. And my mom and my dad would always be like, "Hey, you need to respect the food. It's your time in the food. Like, don't worry about anything else. Don't watch TV or anything." Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, whatever works, right?
Well, fortunately, my mom is not around to tell me to do that right now.
Lucky you, man. Lucky you. But of course, we are back here to talk about. Man, we got a lot of things to talk about. I have a lot of thoughts on a good amount of the books that we have today. And yes, hello, James. Like Tower, good morning. Just watched Omar's video, the most wanted DC Omni and Absolute reprints, and now something from YouTube. Hey, we're happy to see you too, Mike Tower. Batman, good as always to see you. Of course, is comicreleases.com, which you can track all of the upcoming books and whatnot. Foxhound, happy Friday to you. Jarn Powells asks, does Superboy have gorillas? I need to know.
Yeah, there are a few issues with gorillas in that book. Yes.
There are indeed. And of course, James with the awesome link to our awesome. I was gonna say epic, but I didn't realize. Wait, this isn't a Marvel epic stream. This is a DC Finest stream. The awesome group over on Facebook. Lots of great discussions there. Even though I never dabble it in myself, I always find myself scrolling through the community to see what's going on with everybody. Awesome people there. Atomic Hound, good morning to you as well. Hope you are fine on this Friday of the month. Do you want to just get into it, Kurtis?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we have no new announcements or anything like that. So let's just go right for it.
All righty. We at the first start, we do have the first book of the month, which came out on the 6th of May, if my mind serves correctly, and that is none other than DC Events Zero Hour Crisis in Time Part 2 to, of course, mirror the Part 1. This is the second half of the Zero Hour Crisis in Time event by Dan Jurgens and Jerry Ordway. And this book collects a lot of issues, of course. It collects Flash Zero, Green Arrow 90, Adventures of Superman 516, Justice League America 92, Action Comics 703, JLI 68, Legion of Superheroes 61, Green Lantern 0, Superman Man of Steel 0, Guy Gardner Warrior 24, Justice League Task Force 16, Catwoman 14, Robin 10, Showcase 94 issue 10, Damage 0 and 6, Zero Hour Crisis in Time 0 through 2, or 2 through 0 in this case, and Anima number 7. Kurtis, I know that the last time we talked about sort of like, this was your first avenue into a full scope and wide scope DC event, and you talking about it isn't necessarily reader friendly for the newest people there. Has this part two changed that opinion, and what are your overall feelings about the book?
Well, I mean, this one I think is easier to read because it's the last half. The problem with the first half, especially with all of the tie-in issues, is that they a lot of the time was spent wrapping up the stories that were going on in those individual titles, and we didn't really have that issue this time because a lot of these tie-in issues are being published right in the middle of this mini series, this event, and so they have more of a purpose. They tie in more. So this one was more enjoyable to read in that sense. However, still was like, I don't know, as far as events go, I think it's hard when there's an event like this where there's an editorial mandate saying, hey, we need to change some specific things. Can you write a story so that those specific things get changed? And it's like, it's just not organic in that sense. And I found that to be the case with this story. In fact, it involves like almost all of the superheroes, but they spend most of their time just standing around. Like they don't actually do a whole lot. All of the heavy hitters, Batman and Superman, they kind of just watch from the sidelines as the very, very specific people like Damage, a character I've never even heard of before. Do this very specific thing in order to do whatever editorial is telling them to accomplish by the end of the story. So in that sense, it was not that great. Are there some standout issues in here? Absolutely. There are a few that I really liked. Uh, Actually, I want to ask you first, which are the issues that you liked the most out of this book?
I find the Superman issues the most interesting because, I guess, partly spoiler, something happens to Clark like a year before this event happens, and so his whole world is completely changed. And he has to deal with that. And I found a lot of the capers of like, hey, like I'm returning to a metropolis that doesn't know me. There's another superhero in here instead of me, and he has to deal with all of that. And I find those issues interesting because you get to see a Superman who's very confused, who just doesn't understand what's going on top of just being brought back into the fold where he's been gone for, I'll just say, some time. So I think I found the Superman one was most interesting to me. And on top of that, I'm a sucker for silent issues, particularly because I get to see the artist and the writer just sort of like, how can we tell the story where you're just following it with your eyes using the direction of the panels. And I found the Green Arrow story really profound in that way. Even if it isn't my favorite silent issue, there's something that happens to Ollie that unfortunately happens in this book. But I found it to be oddly strong. We won't get to see that. I'll just say we won't get to see a character in that story for quite some time. But I think I found those two the most interesting out of the bunch that we have in this book.
I'd agree with you on the Green Arrow one. I think that one might be my favorite too. And I love the fact that it's because we're telling a story of different timelines and that kind of thing. It's like the whole thing is split into two
Mm-hmm.
timelines. It starts off the same, but at a certain point, there's a branch. And so the top half of all of the pages shows one timeline, like what's happening to Ollie in one, and then the bottom half of the page tells what's happening to Ollie in the alternate timeline. And then at the very end, they kind of meet up again. And I thought that was a really, really great way to tell the story. And it worked well being a silent issue because the artist can and then like pull out certain panels that are just slightly different and really emphasize the scenes that are going on without having to worry about the dialogue. And the other one I really liked was the Robin issue where Tim Drake Robin meets up with Dick Grayson, a young Dick Grayson Robin, because of the merging timelines as well. And I thought that was just a great issue to for both Robins to learn a little bit about what their legacy means.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it later, but I have a lot of the same sentiments for an issue in the Batman DC Finest where Dick Grayson and the current Robin Jason Todd come to rectification in that same way. I was like, man, like I found the ones where Tim Drake and Dick Grayson are just talking about like, hey, like what does the symbol and what does the superhero status of being Robin mean to both of us? And I also can't like I think DC should publish a Robin DC Finest at some point, whatever Robin that might look like, whether it's Dick, Damian, etc. I just want more Robin. As I think what I found out too in the DC Finest for Zero R.
I found that a lot of the issues in this book, um, they are only tie-ins because they fade to white when they wipe out all of the different timelines on the very last page. Otherwise, a lot of these stories don't even have anything to do with the overall event themselves. It just so happens that they fade to white at the end, and then um, the timeline's reset or something like that. But uh, so could they have fit all of this story into one volume if they had taken out the issues that literally didn't have anything to do with the overall
Hmm.
story? Then they could have. But I think just because it had the 0 hour banner on the cover, they
Yeah.
stuck it in here. A lot of them are unnecessary. I also found it interesting the choices they put at the back for the zero issues,
Hmm.
because they included Green Lantern Zero, which that one makes sense because that one serves as an epilogue to the whole story. Um, Superman, Man of Steel, I wasn't sure why they put that
Yeah.
0 hour story in there because it doesn't feel like a fresh start. It doesn't feel like it's referencing anything from the story at all. The Flash one makes sense as well because that's an epilogue kind of
Hmm.
to that character. But based on the and damage number zero as well. That one makes sense because that's kind of a start for that whole character in general. But based on the bonus material we have at the back of the book here, there were like 40 different zero
Hmm.
issues. So it makes me wonder, are we going to get a 0 hour crisis in time part three that
Hmm.
has the zero issues, or are they just going to give us these random three that they stuck at the back here? Random four, which these ones aren't that random. The Superman one was random,
Right. Yeah.
but I don't know if anybody in the chat, if you know, do any of these other zero issues have any sort of relevance to the story, or are they just, I don't know, random issues?
I think the case in point with because people had the same issue with the 0 hour omnibus, which this follows the mapping of, where you're asking like, why don't you include more Green Lantern issues or issues that feature one of the main villains instead of the issues that we have in here. That was one of the biggest things that like I just asked people like, should I pick up the 0 hour Omni? And they told me just read it on like a DC Universe Infinite because the mapping that they have on the app or whatever is a lot better than the mapping in here. Because yeah, I do agree with you. Like at least 25 to 30%, I would say of these two books. I don't know if we needed to have it say in a 0 hour. Um, and these DC finest are just like overall like oh like you need to understand every single bit of the story. Um, some of them I found weak, and some of them I'm like these aren't the strongest things to tie in with this event. So I will agree
Yeah.
with you there. But go ahead.
There's one comment in here I want to highlight. It says, seeing the art of the different issues in your flip through really shows how amazing early DC art was. And that is an interesting comment because if we compare to Marvel, this is 1994. Um, Marvel was, they were a trailblazer in terms of just updating the way the comics were colored at the time because they had bought Malibu colors and they were exploring more like they're hiring more trend-setting artists like Joe Madureira and that kind of stuff that had more of that the Japanese influence or that kind of stuff. Uh, DC wasn't doing that. They still were keeping a pretty close rein on the way that their comics looked. And they had some outliers, like Mark Ruringo does the Flash issues in
Mm-hmm.
here, and
And they're
uh,
awesome.
and
Yeah.
his style is definitely a little bit more modern than Jerry Ordway, who's drawing the main miniseries here. But for the most part, it does look like stuff from late 80s slash even earlier 90s, 91, 92.
Speaking of art, do you have a preference on which Superman? Do you like Superman with a mullet or no?
I think he looks a little ridiculous. That was a product of its time for sure.
It definitely was. Let's go ahead and catch up with some of the folks in the chat. Kratos, good morning to you. Hope you are doing well. We're letting you know if these two books are reading Foxhound. Tom McCown, we'll get to Superboy in a minute, but he says, make sure that you read Superboy edition before July 11th. You won't want to be the only nerd in the theater who hasn't read Krypto's first adventure. I have some words to say about the Superboy DC Finest. Didn't hurt that Jurgens was writing Superman and Zero Hour. I don't disagree. Uh, but yeah, like some of the issues where you're just asking, like, did this really need to be a part of this specific collected edition and also the omnibus? Because I have the same issues with both of those. Superman during the 90s was great in my opinion. Uh, Jason Mill 604 morning. Dom and Kurtis stuck at work this morning, but can't wait to watch later. Got Zero Hour and Batman coming with my monthly comics this month. Can't wait for you to read it. Tom McCollum says, I think Zero Hour has aged decently and better than other early 90s events. And honestly, I'm thinking about events and other big events in the 90s that most people I think would consider just to be the I guess the pinnacle. I guess the comparison a lot of these would be the X-Men events like Fatal Attractions, Onslaught, uh, and others.
I mean, well, those ones are getting closer to the late
The late right.
80s. I mean, 1994 was Age of Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
That one really stands out. Death of Superman was just
Mm-hmm.
before this, or was it
Yes,
after
it
this?
was
I
it
can't
was
remember.
before this.
Yeah, it was before this, and Infinity Gauntlet and such. So there weren't that many um actual like big mm, line wide crossover stories back in the early 90s.
Yeah, I we had Nightfall around this time as well.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, there's in comparison, I think you're probably right. Karsten K, hey all, my internet connection is terrible around here, so I have to catch the recording. Have fun. Hope to catch you later, Karsten. Logan says good morning, Curtis and Domovex. Hello,
Morning,
hello.
Logan Wayne.
Hello indeed. MP, hello friend. It would be cool if DC did a 0 month 1994 Omni. Just put all the zeros in. I think that would be an interesting collection for sure.
Yeah, I mean that one it would just be a bunch of one-shot issues that are to be continued with no follow-up. So it would be kind of hard read. I mean, that's what I was talking about with the Zero Hour Part 3. It would collect more of the zero issues, but maybe we don't actually need that if it's just launch, they're all launch issues, right?
They all are, or for the most part, they all are. Yeah, some zero issues had zero value and reference. Yeah, which is why some issues aren't in here.
Yeah.
Nick C says some of the zero issues, like Starman, had absolutely nothing to do with the event itself. They were just launching new series. Yeah,
Right.
Starman being the biggest one. Oh my goodness, Clark with the Billy Ray Cyrus Smollett was a low point visually. Yeah, I know some people have like a soft spot for it because of nostalgia, but I do prefer other Superman looks that aren't the mullet. Dr. Zero does say that the Bognadave cover with all of the different Superman aping different art styles was amazing, though. John's got a lot of good work in the 90s, man. I will agree with that. And I mean, late 80s superhero art was peak for me. So great that DC kept that going longer. Could we get into a little bit of a spoiler talk, Curtis, if I may, for at least for like the next 2-3 minutes, because I have some thingies to talk about. So I will push in the spoiler overlay because that is what we do. I want to know of your opinion on Hal Jordan as Parallax, because he is, I think, the biggest in terms of the legacy stuff and what people I think remember the most from this period of DC. I think the thing that stands out is this is Hal's eventual start of the turn from I protect Coast City and I also protect, Sector 2814. But then he becomes this super big villain that will eventually ransack his hometown. So my question to you is, do you like the Hal Parallax Jordan stuff here in this 0 Hour DC Finest?
I actually thought that was fine. I know there's a lot of hate when that came out, making this beloved character into a villain, but he's one of those villains who was like trying to do what he honestly believes is the right thing to do, just doing it in a way that other people wouldn't do. And, we see that with especially with like how Loki's portrayed in the MCU or even Thanos. Like they're all doing it not because they're villains, but because they honestly think that this is the way that they wanted the world should be. So I had no problem with that. I liked exploring that side of things, and the conversation around it was really good. And I have no idea where this character goes after this, so I couldn't comment.
Mhm.
But in the context of this story, I was totally fine with him.
And that means we need a Green Lantern or DC Finest Green Lantern Emerald Twilight so we can get you caught up to speed on
Okay.
on Parallax Hal Jordan. But yeah, no, I think I man, the whole conversation, because there are a lot of people who love Hal, also a lot of people who hate or did not like Hal at the time. They prefer Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern. I thought the issue with them talking about the event, talking about the overall state of the universe, I thought that was one of the best issues in this DC Finest. Um, but man, like I don't know where I lean on because like there's one part like I love the 2000s era of Green Lantern where Hal Jordan came back as regular Green Lantern instead of this brooding villain overtaken right by Parallax, but also like there's just a section of me that does want to see more of Kyle Rayner just make an overall trend and impact on this book, which is I don't know, maybe that's I think that's why I like parts of the Hal Jordan Parallax story because it gives somebody else a time to shine instead of the main protagonist that we've had
Yeah.
since the 60s. So that's
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. I like Kyle Rayner as well. I like that how he's just not a retread of how that he has a completely different personality in a way that he goes about doing things and dealing with situations. So I thought that's great, and I would like to see a DC Finest volume that deals with just that character. We only have the one so far, which is Silver Age
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and we have a follow-up of that volume coming up soon. But I'm hoping that the whatever volume they announce next after this will maybe be some of the Kyle Rayner
Yeah,
stuff.
me too. I hope we have. I really want Emerald Twilight, that entire 1995 era of Green Lantern reprinted so bad. Um, but those are my two sets. Omnidime asks, should I read Zero Hour Infinite Crisis first? Which one's better? I personally prefer Infinite Crisis just like overall as a story. Um, I There's something about Jeff Johns' crises events that always gravitate me towards them. I thought it was a lot more enjoyable. But there's that. Not that being said, there is stuff here in Zero Hour I do think that is worth checking out. On top of that, $40 each for two of the book, or $40 USD. Multiply that by two. $80 instead of 175 for the Omni. I think is a great deal for these specific issues. Nixie also says, thankfully, Bruce Timm refused DC's insistence that Superman, the animated series, should have a mullet.
Well, when Batman the Animated Series was out, of course DC had its tie-in comic, Batman Adventures, and there's one issue in there before Superman had his animated show, where Superman teams up with Batman and he had an animated like Batman animated style, but he had the long hair. And if you want to see what the Bruce Timm style would look like with the long hair, there's that one issue. I can't
And
remember which one it is.
somebody tell us in the comments section which issue it is. I know you guys are smart in finding those. Final Night Finest Edition, sign me up. 1 million. Oh man, a DC 1 million 2 set would be so much fun to read. Because I do want, at least from the DC events, overall, not just to focus on the crises, but also the events that aren't the completely shape shifting universe types of events like we have in Zero Hour. So that would be nice of them to do. Um, MP asks, do you think that Parallax is meant to represent older fans upset with post-crisis changes and developments?
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, that could, the way he talks about things could, there could be those parallels for sure. Yeah, that's a good comment.
I really, really like that metaphor. And this I think happens in a lot of crises. I mean, Jeff Johns tries to do like somewhat of the same thing with Superboy Prime, like trying to braise commentary there about hey, people are asking for change, maybe you shouldn't ask for some. And then on top of that, I really do think that the handed commentary here is that we consolidate all of these things on one Earth in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and I think in the eras after, right, because you have some stories, some retcons actively changing characters. Nothing like comics are always evolving, and I think the never-ending story requires some change. So in that aspect, yeah, I do think that it's that's commentary worth talking about. So yeah, MP, smart stuff there. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, hope somebody from DC collected editions watch these streams. 1984 Legion of Superheroes series, please. Yes, I agree. We need another Legion DC Finest volume, by the way. Get on. I agree. Get on it. Spencer Bell asks, do you think that Kyle Rayner getting a compendium will prevent him from getting a Finest soon?
I mean, yes, they're especially because they're both paperback. Like they're not going to flood the market with the same material. They'll probably have to wait for the selling period. I forgot that those were out. So yeah, we probably won't see a Kyle Rayner Green Lantern DC Finest
I,
for a little while.
I think we could get one concentrated around John Stewart at some point if we're like if we're having Guy Gardner as the headline for the next one. I'm sure that John will get his eventually. But you never know with DC. I mean, they love doing a lot of different stories and runs in completely different formats. Some within like a year or 2 years in. Um, I know that some people. I have a friend who's a big Kyle Rayner fan, and he has been asking DC for a DC Finest because on the spine of the compendium it spells compendium like an N instead of an M.
That's
So,
right.
so he's like, man, I really want something brand new. So we'll have to see. I mean, you never know with any of these things. And I think there's nothing wrong with looking forward to the future, saying like, hey, maybe we could get one of that someday. Dom, do you think the New York Knicks can do the impossible? Yes, I'm saying Knicks in 7. You heard it here first, folks. Do not tag me on Discord later. In the later seasons of Batman the Animated Series, Nightwing had a mullet. Naturally, it looked awful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it suited his character
Mhm.
at the time just fine.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that, the way that one looked. I think because it was straight,
Mhm.
straight hair. Um, Superman's naturally flowing curly hair
Yeah.
just looked a little bit more
It's so all
ridiculous.
over the place. Yeah. Do we think the spines on the 0 hour DC Finest could be more connected? Let me see if I can bring. The video on the right does have me showing the spines off, but I'm more than happy to show the folks here. This is what it looks
I mean,
like.
I think that's a perfect pairing. Those are the two main characters of the two main antagonists
Mm.
of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with keeping those two on there.
Yeah, I like it. I like the design choice for extant as the first volume, and then the second volume being Parallax Hal. Raphael PR says, I have Kyle's Compendium, did not see the need for a DC Finest. But I think in the case of like a lot of this, that I think that DC does again, like they do a lot of the same stories in completely different versions of the format. I mean, we're getting a Justice League Dark New 52 compendium like 3 years after the launch of the New 52 omnibus. So there's always, I think, room for them to print out more of these. Um, I think we
And there's
can, yeah.
people that just don't want to read a 800,
Mhm.
900, whatever, 1,000 page book.
1,600 pages for some now, which is crazy. Um,
Yeah.
I think we can thank Alfred for the fact that Batman and Robin didn't get mullets in the 90s. I do like that guy. I love Alfred. And I have some things to say on Alfred, but we are not at that book yet. We do have another one before we talk about the Batman DC Finest. We have the DC Finest, the Superboy, the Super Dog from Krypton, featuring the years 1954 to 55 on this DC Finest. So at the tail end of the Golden Age collecting adventure comics 199 to 216 and Superboy 33 through 43. Of course, the Adventure Comics issues in here are just the Superboy stories from the anthology, if you may, for Adventure Comics, featuring the adventures of young Clark Kent, Lana Lang, and whoever else is thrown in his way. Kurtis, did you enjoy this book? I actually found this to be quite cute and also a better breeze through, I think, than some, because a lot of the stories in here are just, the 6 to 12 page long shorts, if you will.
Yeah, I think that this one is easy to compare to the Supergirl book that we talked about just recently. It's both from the Silver Age, comparable times. This one's 1954 to 1955. What was Supergirl? What years were those ones? Were those
Six,
issues?
60, what was it? 60, why is my mind not mathing? Mid
Yeah,
six,
it was in
mid
the
60,
60s.
mid 60s, yeah.
It, it's amazing that that's a 10-year difference, but they feel so similar in terms of the writing, in terms of the artwork. They comics had not really, or at least DC had not really evolved in those 2 decades, the 50s and 60s. Everything was very, very similar. Or I guess the late 50s, like that, because that's the start of the Silver Age, is 55, I guess, around this time of this book. Um, and so everything feels very similar to the stuff that we are reading Supergirl, but I think I found these ones a little bit more enjoyable
Mm-hmm.
because they weren't as repetitive. Part of my issue with those Supergirl ones is it just kept feeling like
The
it was
same, yeah.
retreading the same story over and over again, whereas in this one, they give Superboy just more things to do. And it's ridiculous. Like this is the Silver Age was catering to a much younger audience, and so we have a lot more just kind of silly stories and that kind of stuff. But they're all fun. Um, let's see what are some of my favorites here. There are so many stories in this one. It's hard to
There
remember.
are.
Oh yeah, there is the kid who's playing pranks.
Mm.
Um, and his pranks like he pretends he has a bomb and he throws it at a police officer, but it's really just a balloon with paint in it, and or that he has a leopard that he's walking around town, but it's nobody no realizes it's a tame leopard. What's ridiculous is the way that Superboy tries to deal with that situation is that he plays a prank on that kid and makes him think that he accidentally ran over his leopard with a car. I thought that was a
Mm.
little on the mean side, um but it got the result he wanted, I suppose.
It's a no, that one's a good story. I think mine had to be the green pet, the green alien from outer space landing
Right.
in a bay, and Clark is just like, "Hey, what's this specimen? What they're about?" And the animal can change. Like they turn into a kangaroo, they turn into all these different creatures, and I had to tell myself, this isn't Beast Boy. I legitimately thought for a moment that, like, oh, maybe at the end, like, oh, like this beast of a boy for something but no, completely different creature from a completely different time, and I just love the novelty of it. Just seeing creatures change here and out. I thought that was fun to read, and a lot of the stories are. But I also like the inserts that they threw in here with the Superboy's workshop, where you get to make different things. Like there's an X-ray box, there's a club emblem that you can stitch. Like there are a lot of fun activities I think that you can have in this book. They even give you the list of materials that you need to make, or they need to bring, to make these. Overall, I really really do like a lot of the stories in here. There's another one where there's a jury in Smallville, but the jury is made out of kids, and not adults, which I think fit the thematic scheme of a young Clark. So good stuff.
So you were thinking that that green creature was Beast Boy, but I, being the Marvel fan, I was like, this is really similar to the Impossible Man.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was thinking through this time. I had to check the timeline.
Mhm,
Of course, I mean, Impossible Man doesn't come up for many years later
mhm,
because Marvel, as we know it now, present day Marvel wasn't a thing at this point. But there's also the issue where right at the very beginning, Lana gets a phone call that says her parents have died. And I was like, this is a heavy hitting issue, and she
mhm,
has to go live with Clark for a little while and his
mhm,
family. Um, and then they go through a whole series of events, and then at the end of this issue, they find out that her parents are alive again, and it's all good. It's like this
mhm.
is a whirlwind of emotions, right? In like eight pages or
Right.
whatever it is.
But I thought they packed, a lot of like the pacing in those well.
Yeah,
Even with like,
yeah,
like your heart, like your heart like wants to like tear out to like some of the emotions there, like you mentioned. But then you're like, wait, these are all probably going to be fine, by the end. But I thought that was well done too. Um, Even like the first appearance of Krypto, I thought was I thought it was ingenious the way that they, Clark is like, hey, like this person, like this, like, tiny little dog can, like, stop and apprehend criminals. I need to keep an eye out. Like, who on earth is this? And you find out, oh, that's where this person's from. They're
yeah.
from the same planet as me, and all of these different things. And I think yeah, I keep saying novelty, but yeah, overall, just the way that every single book is paced, like all concise in 8 pages, whatever you need, however long you need to tell the stories. I found that even if we don't know who some of the writers are, because some of these stories are uncredited because we just don't have the information, credit to whoever scripted those, helped you create them. I thought they were all well done.
I will say though that Crypto on the cover here. Whoops, where's my camera? He's definitely not as cute as James Gunn is making him. Kind of an ugly little mutt there.
Oh, there you go. With the big old red cape. But yes, I do. I also would recommend this to people who, if you are about to read some Superman single issues coming out this summer, Mark Waid and Skylar Patridge are going to be doing Superboy adventures in Action Comics that mimic a lot of the same
Oh,
material
cool. Wow.
in this book. So if you are gearing up for that and you're like, hey, I want to see how these types of little strips were made back in the 50s, I would definitely recommend this DC Finest to you. There's a lot of strong art in here too. I have like from John Cicala, who does majority of the like the adventure comics issues and whatnot. Sorry, the Superboy issues. And then Kurt Swan, who gets his bill on about like 1/4 to a third of the book through adventure. I thought it's perfect golden age stuff if that's your thing.
Yeah, artwork is super strong in this book all throughout. They okay, I think my favorite artist in this book, I have to check because I'm not as familiar with these guys. Yeah, John Cicala
Mm-hmm.
is the guy. I really like his. I don't know if he's the inker on this stuff too. There's no credited inker on his issues, but I do really like that's his style.
I do as well. Yeah, it's clean. Like they're all clean lines, but I've found them very very soothing to look at, and I think that just may also be me, but like a lot of the artists that I like nowadays, they're not usually great at drawing adolescents or people under the age of 16. Like some of the faces you go like, man, this is bizarre, grotesque. I've never had that issue in this particular
Think of
book.
John Byrne is terrible at drawing little children. They just look like tiny midget adults, and it doesn't work well.
It does not.
Um, they always look weird. No, but the Yeah, these ones are great. Yeah, he nails the adolescent look of all of these characters, especially Clark
Mhm.
and Lana. And but what I love about all of these artists is that they're so good with their compositions. None of them skimp on backgrounds.
Agreed.
All of these backgrounds are very, very well detailed and so much there's so much in there, but they never distract from the composition of the characters. They know exactly how to craft a panel so that it reads really, really well, despite intricate background design and effects and whatnot. So very, very good stuff. I really enjoy yeah, I quite enjoyed this one a lot more than Supergirl. I think I put it on the same tier as Superman Family. I really
Mm.
enjoyed that one as well.
Yeah, I would too, and they're very much structured a lot like the same way. Quick 6 to 12 pages, call it a day. You get a one like nice one-off story. I also like in your discussion of the background pieces. What I'm really impressed by, if they're on like a safari adventure or like a completely different area, there's always detail in like maybe it's the trees, maybe it's the animals in the background, maybe it's the caves, and there's always something there. It's not just we're gonna draw a cave and call it. No, like there's stuff in the panel that makes it stand out. And I have to give a big credit to all of them because it just makes the worlds feel full, and it makes the particular scenes more engaging because there's always something artistically involved in those panels. But let's go ahead and let's catch up with the chat. As a 90s DC Comics collector, wouldn't mind a DC finest of both the Ray, which had 28 issues, and yeah, Grant Emerson's Damage. Would you think it would sell? I will
That's a
say,
hard one. Both
yeah.
of those characters are not well-known characters outside of the hardcore DC fans. So, I mean, it would be great to see them. Um, and I know DC's taking a little bit more of a risk with some of these books that they're publishing, but they're still staying pretty close to characters that have had movie properties or that kind of stuff. So I'm not sure that we will see those anytime soon.
Which is yeah, unfortunate because yeah, the Ray by Christopher Priest and Joe Quesada, I do think would make up for a really nice collected edition, but um, yeah, I have no idea when we'll be able to get one. Considering that I think Joe Q is back at Marvel now doing Marvel Knights or the relaunch of that imprint, so we shall have to see. Michael McLendon says, yeah, really hoping that we get DC Finest to cover all of New Teen Titans in that era. I agree too, and I would really like to see a lot of that 90s Titans material. Because we saw some of it, of course, in the Zero Hour DC Finest, but that era of Titans, that all the way up to Dan Jurgens and also with Devin Grayson, has just not been really well collected by DC at all. So it would be nice to have a lot of spotlight on those eras as well.
Yeah,
Finally,
I
yeah.
think
Oh,
that is a title that's super popular. It it had its series of thinner trades recently, and did they finish those trades completely, like collecting all of that era?
no, they did. I
Do you know
didn't.
if
They didn't
there's
even finish the omnibuses as well.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Well, I think maybe DC Finest would be the place to get some of that stuff that was not collected in those other trades.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Foxhound really did like Superman's bullet in the JLA Morrison run. There were a lot of Morrison's JLA stuff that I was a lot more tolerable of versus others, but I think that just might be because I'm a big
I
Grant
guess it
Morrison.
depends on the artist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Howard Porter did a really good job with selling me on that and the Superman red and blue versions that were in that run. Um,
right.
Matt A asks, is anyone other than these two actually caught up on DC Finest? I haven't read at least half of them yet. LOL.
I tell you, I'm glad that I have this live stream every month to force me to read them because otherwise I'd be in the same boat. It's been really great being able to keep up.
Yeah, this is yeah. It's been fun. The problem I will say, Matt, and I'll be open about this, is I've had to completely cut off my social life to read some of these books. I'll only go out like once every 2 or 3 weeks now, just so that I can keep up with everything that's in these books, so I can talk to you guys about it. But yeah, they are. But some of the I will also say, I think I have fallen in love with this specific age of DC in ways that I didn't envision. Like, I kid you not, Kurtis. We might have talked about this before, but back when I started working in my comic shop, 2021, I told the folks that I worked with there, man, you could give me $100 extra a week, and I would not read a single Silver Age book from DC or Marvel. And now, 4 or 5 years later, that has completely flipped 180. Like, I'm fully into the world that these guys have created, and I feel really bad that I was I just shut down different periods of time because I was so close-minded. But yeah, here I am, telling people to read Superboy.
And that's great. And I think giving it a try, and like especially being forced into it with something like this is the way to do it. And you never know, you might not have liked it. It could have gone that other way as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Right.
And there will probably be those books that you find are a drag because not everyone is a winner, and not everyone, like they're not all written by the same person. When we eventually get to that very first Wonder Woman book,
Oh man.
that I mean, I know that's Golden Age, it's not Silver Age, but that one, I've read a lot of that material because I have an old trade, and um, but that stuff is hard,
Yeah.
man. That stuff is really difficult to get through.
Yeah. And I know we'll definitely not spew, but like talk about some of our thoughts when we get around to that DC Finest in December, because yeah, I have a lot of words to say about that era of Wonder Woman. Somebody was asking about the Impact Comics, which is a completely different imprint with characters like Comet, the Fly, the Shield. Do you think DC Finest could get some of those done? Atomic Hound says they were licensed, so unlikely, but never say never, which is the case with a lot of these books. So we shall
Yeah,
see.
the shield is an Archie
Archie, yeah.
property,
hmm
I think.
So they would have to get different permission from others to get some of that out. Yeah, we'll see. Never say never, but yeah, I don't know if that's on their minds as of this moment. I think where there are so
Got
many,
so much
yeah.
content without
hmm
even dipping into the license
hmm
stuff that they wouldn't even
hmm
need to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, Orlando.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Thank you, Orlando. I really, really appreciate it. Um, Here is another question. Was it always implied that Clark was Superboy when he was younger, or did the series invent that? This was from my understanding of doing research on this era of Superboy Jarn, was that this was originally pitched by Jerry Siegel in the late 40s, but due to the time, the people over at National Publications said no to the pitch. They eventually caved in a couple years later when they tried to pitch it again in the pages of Adventure Comics, and they said, yes, you can do this young Superboy, the young Superboy, whatever stories that will have Clark as a kid, just sort of like as these are the adventures before he became Superman, got the tights and undies or whatever, and the character eventually got popular up to the point where he started getting his own series in the early 50s. So that's my understanding of it, is that this wasn't supposed to be the original intention when they made the Superman character back in the late 1930s. But as time evolved, and as you're trying to think of new ideas to run, the guys over there said, hey, like, let's go ahead and make this character. And believe it or not, yes, we eventually got it. Now, granted, this Superboy idea has been retconned quite a couple of times. There was even a point, I think Mark Waid said in a couple of years ago in an interview, that he really wanted to do Superboy, or like reintegrate the Superboy thought and idea into his Superman Birthright limited series, but DC wouldn't let him because of the continuity that they currently had. But now that we've had all of this continuity come back into DC over the last couple of years, it seems like they're keen and back on the idea of, we're gonna make Superboy a thing again. So I hope that clears up some of the question that you had there.
So what is the continuity now then? How do these stories fit in with modern DC continuity? Do
I
you
think
know?
I think my understanding of it is that these it's not that they didn't happen. There were moments in the 90s where they said like, yeah, we don't want to do the whole Superboy thing, so they wiped away a lot of these 50 stories to just say like, yeah, Clark became Superman as a late like, late in the 10s, etc. But now that we've had like DC Rebirth and whatnot to say like, hey, like, those stories that in the 50s, they exist in, Prime Earth continuity now. Um they have it set back where it's like, okay, like we have Superboy back in actual DC continuity. Just make all of these Superman stories in the 50s, make that canon. And now we have a Superboy Action Comics run with Mark Waid, where he's going back and doing some old stuff with Superboy now. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to reconcile for sure. I think, and I don't know because I know in the Golden Age comics, like Martha and John
Mm-hmm.
Kent weren't even a thing. Like he was dropped off at in an orphanage,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I don't think they don't really play up where Superboy lives in any of these
Mm-hmm.
comics here.
No,
Like we don't see John and oh, I guess we do see John and Martha a little bit, do we? Do we? I don't remember.
they're not prominent.
Um,
It's not like, I'm reading, you say, through like I always reference Jeff Johns Superman whenever I get back to it, but that's just like, I like in Jeff Johns Action Comics run, like Ma and Pa Kent were always there, like late 80s, whatever, 90s, they were always there. It's funny too they mentioned this, and this is like a somewhat of a sidetrack, but I read through the original pitch that Mark Millar had for Superman Red Son. And the Superman editor told Mark Miller, obviously his last name, that Ma and Pa were integral characters in Superman's life, and that they instilled this goodness in him, which is why like Superman wants to save people and do the right thing in whatever way. And I found that
mhm.
interesting because in the mid 90s, which is when the Red Sun pitch was thrown at, this is the Superman editor Mike McAvenny at the time, who told this guy who wanted to write the Superman story that Ma and Pa Kent are super important to who Clark is as a character, um, which is something interesting because I now I want to know like how other pitches were thrown. Like maybe somebody wanted to write a Superboy story then. What I want to see like what they had the editor had to say something about. But
Yeah,
I do find that interesting that the editor in the 90s said that yeah, Mom and Pa Kent were important, no matter what way you put it.
nice.
Um,
So I just flipping through is like they are there in this
yeah.
story. Even I talked about this one where Lana's parents die and Clark has to live with Lana has to live with Clark. Ma and Pa are there, so they are in these stories here. Um, I yeah, when I wonder somebody probably knows just because I don't know the history as well. Um, when was it that it was determined that Superman became Superman when he went to Metropolis?
It that is a question that I am not certain of, but I'm sure somebody please help us in the comments section down below because you guys are smarter at Superman continuity than me. Honestly, this is something that I do find interesting because I think a lot of the Superman family from DC suffers the same way because of all of the different crises that we've had involved. How Supergirl has had 4 or 5 different distinct versions of herself. Like we've had, late 50s, early 60s Supergirl with Linda Lee, Peter David Supergirl with Matrix, and then a brand new Supergirl that was introduced in the pages of Superman Batman with Jeff Loeb. And then when New 52 retconned all of that, we had a completely brand new Supergirl too. Rebirth comes along. We've had a whole lot of different distinctions about this, like every single person in the Superman mythos, to the point where we've just had all of these spinning continuities, and I now understand like why some people might hesitate to get into these stories, because I think like you, Kurtis, like a lot of people are questioning what is completely canon. Do we throw out some stories because this more modern story makes sense, or what do we stick in terms of, when I think of Clark Kent, when I think of Superman, what do you think of? And I think that DC has been toiling around with that for such a long time. Um, Completely vague statement, I know, but I think that's how a lot of people feel when they get into stuff like this. That it's super messy, and it might not be the straightest answer, where people might be asking, can we get something like that? But anyways, I digress. A lot of people are excited for the Bronze Age Superman DC Finest coming out next week for Kryptonite Nevermore. Uh,
I am really looking forward to that book. That's my highlight for next month for sure.
yes, yes.
Keep talking, Dom. I got to jump off for just 1 second. I'll be right back.
Okay, he is going to jump off for just 1 second, so I will keep you guys in tow. Yeah. See, I would love. I want to cut off a lot of. Not want to. I've had to, and now with the Switch 2 coming out next week, that's even more of my life being sucked away. And interesting, Orlando. I believe it was implied, although there have been multiple legal battles about who gets credit for Superboy. I know that there has been a lot of talk with the both the Siegel and Schuster estates, and this was not even back, like not even a current thing. Like I looked up, like this has been stemming from the 1950s. So it's a very, very weird and oddly messy situation. MP says, seems like DC Finest might be bookending the pre-crisis era for the Trinity. We've had 3 earliest Golden Age collections announced, and ones for the final Bronze Age Batman, which is super cool, by the way. Let me just add, and Wonder Woman stories circa 1985 to 1986. And I think that we're going to be getting a lot of different Wonder Woman eras that aren't part of the George Perez. Like everything that they haven't collected, I think that is their prime target for all of this. And interesting, both Super Baby and Superboy were Golden Age creations, I think, in more fun comics. See, I also looked this up on Twitter, Catch, because Mark said on Twitter back in, I think, 2019 that both pronunciations, Millar and Miller, are correct. But I know that Miller, the Miller with an A, is supposed to be a variant of Miller, like with an E. I say Millar because there are some people who are asking me, like, who on earth is, like, are you talking about Frank or Mark? I always enunciate the A because people know who I'm talking about. So anyways, that is just me. The New Adventures of Superboy 1980 series is a good candidate for these editions, 54 issues, and that might be where they go next. Yeah, I think that's where we get that case from Raphael. And every single time somebody brings up John Byrne's Superman, I still remember Mark Waid telling both of us that Walt Simonson had a super big pitch for Superman that was not accepted by DC.
Yeah. So, but that was the 80s,
That was
right?
the 80s. Yeah.
So the Superman movie came before that, and it
70,
had
yeah.
clearly defined Clark Kent becoming Superman as he travels to Metropolis. So maybe that's where it comes in, is the movie.
He also comics in. Atomic Con also brought this up. Yeah, Secret Origin, I think, is because this is the most current regular origin story for Superman that we have up, which was published in 2008, if my mind serves correctly. Johns brings up, like, hey, like, Clark and Lex were in Smallville, they were doing stuff, and then he grows up, gets past Lana, and moves to the big city. And we have not had a Superman origin story since. We've had stories like Superman Reborn, where different conflicts of continuity because of a Superman that they brought in after Rebirth. This is 2017. we've had stories like that where some things were retconned to retroactively fit the current Superman that we have, but the most updated origin that we do have is Jeff Johns and Gary Frank's Superman Secret Origin. Um, so yeah, tell you guys, I can't wait for the Switch 2, but that, completely different story for a different time. Do hope they eventually get to the popular stuff. This is such a reasonably priced line that it drew me into reading and buying DC, which is awesome to hear. And I'm really glad a lot of people have been getting into the line because of that. And
I think
Ian,
that they've been doing
yeah.
a really good job at getting a lot of the popular stuff in there, like the Green Arrow book is
Mhm.
some of his, like Longbow Hunter, some of
Yeah,
his most popular stuff. The Teen Titans Judas Contract was arguably the greatest Teen Titans story. Um, the Golden Age and Silver Age stuff always seems to be popular. They keep reprinting it. So I think DC has a lot of just really popular eras. So they're going for it.
they do. And one of their most popular eras and also stories of all time is in the next DC Finest that we have to talk about. And that is none
What a
other
segue.
Uh, that is none other than Batman, The Killing Joke, and Other Stories, the second volume of the post-crisis era of DC for just overall everything. And you want to talk about a book where, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts because there is so much material packed into this one DC Finest that I feel like we could be spending. I mean, The Killing Joke just by itself and Son of the Demon by themselves, like they could just be us talking about this for an hour. Like that's how much I think you can talk about these stories. But in this collected edition, we do have, of course, the Son of the Demon original graphic novel and Batman: The Killing Joke #1, along with issues 413 to 422 for Batman and Detective Comics 580 to 589. So, Kurtis, where would you like to start with this? Because we can start wherever I think we'd like with how much collected is in this book.
Well, I will say that I only got this book a few days ago. It arrived pretty late for me in the mail.
Mhm.
So I've gotten through what page am I on now? I'm on page 269.
Okay.
So
Nice.
I haven't read the last half of this book yet, but I have read Killing Joke before, which is at the very back of this book. So my comments are going to come from the first half of this book, which
Okay.
is super, super good,
I
first
agree.
of all.
Yes.
Um, yeah, you mentioned Son of the Demon. That original graphic novel by Mike Barr and Jerry Bingham
Mm,
is just incredible.
I,
I love it so much. And um, Ra's al Ghul or Raz al Ghul, however you pronounce them. I always say Ra's because I'm so familiar with Batman the animated series. But Ra's al Ghul is always an interesting character to me. I always love the stories when he comes up, and this one is no exception because here's another character um, who's very, very complicated. He's not he's not a villain, but he's not a hero either. And so his we never really know what his motivations are. And in this one, in this comic, it he plays that up really, really well. Uh, Great relationship building between Bruce and Talia,
mm,
and the artwork is amazing. It's so good. It has this kind of Neil Adams-esque feel to it. Great poses, amazing detail, excellent storytelling throughout. It's so good. And then the light watercolor touch on all of these pages is really good, giving it a slightly washed out look, which gives it a completely different feel from anything else in this book. Um, Loved it. So far, that's the standout for me.
mm.
Um, and I have to ask because I meant to look this up, but I didn't. But this child at the very end of the book, is this Damian
It
Wayne?
eventually ends up into a retcon who ends up being Damian Wayne.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it when writers will go back to something that happened like 40 years ago and pick out that one little snippet. It's like just great. I love
Mhm.
it.
No, I completely agree with that. And like, not only do I love everything that you just talked about for Son of the Demon, I think it's paced extraordinarily well in terms of the setup, the
Yeah.
conflict of all the characters, and also the thought of Bruce being a little bit like torn down in terms of the walls that he's built up because he's in this betrothed relationship now with Talia, something that I don't think he was expecting. But you also get to see Bruce with a heart, which is something that we sometimes don't get in these stories. But I really love that that Mike W. Barr was able to showcase some of his humanity and also some of the vulnerable moments. In the case of like, oh my gosh, like this person that I like that I have feelings for, and also this child that I'm about to like father, like, am I gonna lose that? I really love the conflicts that they set up in here. This is just like it's a masterpiece of storytelling. I'm really really happy that they managed to slip that in here. Often in collections like these, you're like, man, like they could just put Son of the Demon out like in a magazine size trade paperback, like whatever it was originally printed in. But the fact that they not only snuck that in here, but we get to see everything fold out in the 80 pages or so, I think is absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal job by DC to include it, and also just a phenomenal story in general.
I'm surprised that this book doesn't get the same sort of attention as some of the other stuff that DC publishes just on an ongoing basis in their deluxe editions
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like, why doesn't this one get the same sort of attention? It's very strange.
It is. And because man, like saying other, this is not. I understand like Killing Joke is going to get top billing in this book because that's the story that everybody knows about, right? When you think about the
Yeah.
most famous Batman stories, Killing Joke will always be referenced no matter what happens, right? And I get that, but I think to brand Son of the Demon in other stories, if you may, it just feels weird saying that because like Son of the Demon shouldn't just be another Batman story. I mean, this should be on the folds of that same like top 5, top 7, top 10 Batman stories ever. Like if that's what we want to, but like I think it had and should have that recognition in the same way as Long Halloween or Killing Joke, or Hush do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if they split this volume in half, then Son of the Demon would be in the first half, and it would definitely be the title of the collection. But I
Yeah.
think just because it happened to get squashed in the book with Killing Joke is like you can't help it.
Right.
Now I wonder why they called it the Killing Joke in other stories. They could have just called it the Killing Joke.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like none of these other, I guess year one and year
Mm-hmm.
two has two titles in it as well, but
Mm-hmm.
all of these other books just have one title in it. Okay, so also Jim Starlin,
Yes. Yes.
I love that guy, man. He's so good in everything that he does. Every book that I read of Jim Starlin is just so good. His Silver Surfer is amazing. He does a graphic novel called The Hulk and the Thing, Big Time.
Yeah.
Big Time, is that what it's
Mm-hmm. Big
called?
time. Yeah.
I think it's, but yeah, that one is really good. And Infinity Gauntlet, of course. And then this stuff here is just so good. These few issues that I read that are Jim Starlin issues, uh, really, really great. I didn't realize that he was the creator of Scarface
Indeed.
and the Ventriloquist.
Yeah.
And like, I love those characters from the cartoon, and I've never really read any stories with them in the comics. And right out of the bat, this two-part story is so good. With Jim Starlin at the realm there. No, hold on a second. I'm wrong.
No. No.
This is not Jim Starlin. Let me just double check.
I think
It's
you're thinking about, yeah,
John
mhm,
Wagner and Alan Grant,
and Norm
two other
Brayfogle. Yeah.
amazing writers as well. John Wagner actually writes one of my favorite comics, which is called The Button Man,
Mhm.
for 2000 AD. And Button Man is about a group of wealthy millionaires who hire a bunch of mercenaries to kill each other, and they take bets on who's going to win. And it is so good. That story is excellent. But yeah, sorry, John Wagner is the creator of Scarface and the Ventriloquist, and it's just such a good issue. No, The Jim Starlin issue I think I'm thinking of is, let me see if I can find it here. Um, it's a little after that where uh where is it? Where Nightwing
Yeah,
and
Jason Todd. Yeah,
Robin
yeah.
are teaming up. What issue is that one?
416.
Now that's a Starlin one, right?
Yep, Starlin and our guy Jim Aparo.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This was such a good issue, where they team up and this is kind of the first meeting between the Jason Todd Robin and Dick Grayson, who has just
Mhm.
become Nightwing, Nightwing confronts Bruce over this whole situation of taking on a new Robin and what that means to him. And it was like, wow, such an emotional issue. It's mostly all dialogue. Um, but the two of them, Starlin and Aparo on the book together, are just killing it. It's so, so good. Both art-wise, the flow of action, the flow of the dialogue, talking heads, along with Jim Starlin's amazing narrative is really great. So that
The
each
flashbacks.
one of these issues is a standout so far.
Yeah, the you have Jim Starlin who finally gets to have his runway on Batman, right? Where I think he was overshadowed in the previous volume because of Frank Miller, and unfortunately, rightly so. He finally gets his own leeway in this specific collected edition, and it's a shame because I think he should be on the bottom of these guys, along with Alan Grant and Norman Brayfogle, who are on Detective. This is Jim Starlin's Batman. Uh, this is his way of making us remember like, oh, these are the adventures that Bruce and Jason Todd had. Whether you're running into villains like Two Face, even like one of the earliest stories in the book where like there's somebody who is on a killing spree, and Bruce makes friends with somebody, and that somebody, I will say, doesn't end up in a situation where they want to be. I really thought the narration was incredibly strong and makes you feel for this person who I'd never had experience reading before, because like they're not a standout Batman character like Leslie Tompkins or someone like that. And yeah, you have, I think MP said it best as I was reading through the comments. Like this is Alan Grant, John Wagner, and Norm Brayfogle on Detective, and Jim Starlin and Jim Aparo on Batman. And those two creative teams are just so strong throughout that it's really, really hard to find any place in this book, I think, where you might not you might be like let off. Like there are very few like dips in the quality of this book. And that's not even count, again, this doesn't even count Son of the Demon or Killing Joke as part of the two. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, talk
And
about
when
a
you
stand.
compare it to the previous volume, because the previous volume was still dealing with the shift over from the pre-crisis stuff. So we
Mm-hmm.
still get like those Alan Davis issues,
Mm-hmm.
which were still good, but they dealt with the more Silver Age style kind of goofiness and whatever before they had fully switched over to, the Miller or the Max Allan Collins kind of stuff that they were going for afterwards. And so they had kind of shed all of that stuff by this point, and all of this material is this classic post-crisis Batman that I think really, really defines the character for the rest of Batman continuity up until in present day. So, uh, man, I am just plowing through this, and I can't wait to finish. I'm glad I have a week off before Superman comes because I'm
Woo!
gonna finish off and really really get into it because I'm so excited about this. I'm so glad that this collection exists.
I am too, because yeah, like there's the next volume is going to have the unfortunate passing away of one of our characters in this book. That
Yeah.
and Jim Starlin also, authors that, which I think is also just as emotionally powerful and incredible. What I also love about this volume, before I talk about I'll quickly like go over the stories just over because you haven't gotten to the 10 Nights of the Beast, which is KG Beast's first appearance into DC
Okay.
continuity. Hopefully, we'll talk about that next week. Um, I have no idea how this happened. I have I have like this strong feeling now for liking. I don't mind Jason Todd as Robin, guys. I really, really have enjoyed his Caper in Avengers. I like that he's a little bit more hot-headed and like into the thick of it versus Dick Grayson, who's maybe a lot more spry, cartoony, if you may. They're just so different in terms of personality that I can't help but notice that I understand the '80s shift away from Jason because he's just a completely different character. But looking back on it, I don't think it was as bad. I think as some people like might have let it out to be. At least for me, I really like that he not just has a different personality. I really also like that he because a lot of the features or issues in this book you have him featured with Two Face, who has a very strong connection with. And I just like characters that are integrated into other villain stories. I think that makes them stronger. As individuals as opposed to this is just another run of the mill character. I think that Jason Todd does have aspects of his character that I do like about him, and I really like that they're highlighted. Otherwise in this DC finest because I don't know where we would have gotten that without. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great to have this whole block of years just kind of sectioned off for us right here, the Jason
Mhm.
Todd era. Um, I suppose we should definitely mention, pardon me, we should definitely mention that the Killing Joke is using the original colors. That was one of the biggest questions when this volume was announced, is are they going to go with the original colors or are we going to go with the new coloring job that they did for the Absolute or the deluxe
Mhm.
edition? And so yes, they're going with the original colors, which is great. I love the original colors. The thing that they changed when they recolored it was they made everything look a lot more just realistic and grounded,
Right.
which suits the artwork. But I think when we're talking about a traumatic story like this, especially with a character with the Joker. The very abstract coloring that John Higgins does in these books really emphasizes um, just the wild behavior of the Joker. Um, so you have pages like this, which have a much more muted color tone. The whole page is bathed in kind of yellows and oranges and browns, and that's how we get the grounded look of the world that we're in. It's not colored realistically, but it's to give us the feeling of how grounded and rooted it is. And then you flip the page, and then we get the Joker and we get go into Joker's world, and then all of a sudden things are more abstract colored. We get more garish kind of reds and greens as a counterpoint toward each other. We get a page bathed in red to show the danger that Batman's in. We get all of these weird let me see if I can find a better example here. Yeah, in the Batcave, we got a lot of purples and greens blending in together to show the reflection of the TV. All of this kind of stuff is not realistically colored, but I think that's the point. It's not supposed to be. This whole story is supposed to really play with your emotions and play with how traumatic of an event this is. And when you color it realistically, you're going to it just tells a different story. When you go with something that's abstract like this panel is almost all yellow, with no definition in the characters in the foreground or background, but that's on purpose. You're supposed to be taken aback by the way that this story looks. So, yeah, like look at this panel at the bottom here. It's just so strange in the way that they decided that John Higgins decided to color it, but it suits it because um, it's just a different world. You know, there's some Um, you have to be careful which pages. There's some mature content in here. Um, so yeah, that's what I wanted to show. I wanted to show off that the coloring there, and I think I love it. I love it. I love the original coloring so much.
It's
Um,
it's good stuff.
one of these comments says, is the Killing Joke censored?" And with a follow-up comment saying, "No, it's not censored." But I don't know what the censors would have been. Do you know what was censored in this book?
I think it's just the Barbara Gordon uh photos that Joker took in the panel. I think that's what they're talking about.
Okay. Well, there's nothing like too revealing in those pictures. Like they're cropped so you don't see anything in terms of violence or nudity. So I'm not sure exactly what I'd have to see what the censored panels look like.
Yes, indeed. But yeah, my understanding is, yeah, they should not be. The other thing too, like we've been talking about for these DC finest, oftentimes when there is stuff that is altered or might be, they do have a little warning, in the table of contents at the book saying this book wasn't altered or censored for publication, whatever it might be, right? The regular message that we usually get. We didn't have one. For this specific DC Finest, and I think if we did have it, they would have told us, right at the front, if it was going to be uh, censored or not. So that is our understanding to that degree of the question that you asked. Um, Let me see if I can run down because yeah, I mean there's just a lot of stuff to talk about in this Batman. Yeah, I love Starlin's run in Batman. It was my favorite run when I was a kid. Still, it does hold up completely. Yeah, we got KG Beast and Button Man. Batman 416 by Starlin is a beautifully tragic issue dealing with Batman and Nightwing. Perfect epilogue to Max Collins' early issues too. Like, yeah, we were speaking about this MP like multiple times, not only in the front of the stream, but also when you asked which of the retcons do I prefer in New Teen Titans or in Batman. I really, really love that story of that. Like, just as Kurtis said, when you see Bruce, I think when you see Bruce be human, I think those are the stories that speak to me a lot because you don't just see like the dark brooding of the cowl. You get to see like, oh wait, this person has feelings too. And when he takes off his mask and says the stuff that he says, like, as I want you guys to read for yourself, you feel something drop in your heart. And yeah, Jim Aparo obviously is uh, one of the greatest artists of all time. Do you think the yellow background Batman spines are going to be a pattern for both post-crisis Batman or just coincidence? They're talking about the
Probably just
yeah, in the question.
coincidence.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yes, indeed. They could change. Totally can't believe. I can't believe Starlin isn't on the cover as well. I'm also surprised that we haven't had a Starlin Batman omnibus. But again, that's just me. I think you could say the same thing for Alan Grant and Norman Brayfogel's Detective Comics, which is just as strong. As Kurtis talked about earlier, the and Scarface of the Ventriloquist are some scary, scary, scary guys. Um, Hi guys, hello David, how are you doing? I just got the Green Arrow DC Finest, but I'm thinking maybe the Omnis were the way to go. Do you know if the rest of the run will be collected? I have no doubt in my mind that they're going to continue. They haven't indicated anything as of like they wouldn't be able to. So, but they just keep in mind with the DC Finest that because of how much Green Arrow there is, they could get a jump. But I think because we just had the Kevin Smith, Brad Meltzer era of Green Arrow put into an omnibus, I don't think they're gonna put out a DC Finest of that. I don't know if they want to double dip into that just yet. Um, let's see. Let's go ahead and move on. Matt, hope you're doing well, man. Sorry you're late. Glad to catch him. I'm glad you're here too. Hope you're doing well. So glad they went with the original coloring for Killing Joke. I completely agree. Does Bruce have a girlfriend in this volume?
Well, kind of. I mean, Son of the Demon, he has this relationship with Talia, of course, and he gets hung up on this girl that he meets. They don't
Mm-hmm.
really have a relationship. Um, and then something happens to the girl, and that fuels some storylines throughout this book. But there's no, yeah, he has no actual like consistent girlfriend in these
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah, I think the closest you get to it is the relationship that he has with Talia because of his connection with the Al Ghuls, but that is the, I mean, that's the most. Like, he's not dating Selena or anyone else at all in these Batman or Detective volumes. Feels like I'm gonna go on a reading after the finest. Yeah, get on the reading. MP says, I love Jason Todd as Robin, especially post Crisis. I cannot stand Red Hood at all, but Robin too is a genuinely compelling character. I agree. And whenever the next of these DC Finest comes out, that next volume with Death in the Family, man. Oh man, it's gonna be a sad day for all the people I know who like Jason Todd. Rereading Crisis right now, it's really enhancing the enjoyment of these trades. Interesting. Atomic Hound participated in the phone poll for Jason Todd back in
Oh,
1988.
nice.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I just want
Good
my
for you.
50 cents back. I think 50 cents is quite
Oh, I
yeah.
assume it didn't go the way you wanted it to then, Atomic Hound.
Oh, I feel bad, man. I feel bad. Eric asks, if I already have the Killing Joke, do you think I need this book? I'm saying yes, but Kurtis, if you have a longer answer.
Well, I mean, if you have any other edition of Killing Joke, this book has, 610 more pages of stuff that's not in any of those other editions of Killing Joke of amazing Batman content. So it's up to you, man. There's way more in this book beside Killing Joke. That's Killing Joke is just
Mhm.
a small fraction of the amazing stuff that's in
Yeah.
here.
Like we mentioned earlier, like it says Killing Joke and other stories in the title, but I do want to put an emphasis on those. Like those other stories are also so good that it's really hard to put any of those down. And it's still a while. They had a man. Yeah, I will. What I will do whenever the DC Finest for the 1988 to 89 Batman comes out, um, we're gonna have some story time. I'm gonna do some research, and we're gonna get read up and caught up on everything that had to do with the death of Jason Todd, so I could do some storytelling for that
So,
specific show. Go, sorry.
yeah, Atomic Hound, I have to know, what was the phone call
Mhm.
like?
Yes.
Was it like press one to kill Jason Todd, press two to save him? I I just want to know how they dealt with that. So if you can let me know that if you remember, that'd be great.
Interesting. Got a number, man. You got. Oh my goodness. Um, these DC Finest trade paperbacks have been. I mean, just hearing Kurtis honestly like fanboy over this volume of Batman has just been such music to my ears that it's really hard to talk about the like put into words the impact these books have had for sure. Um, David asks, do you guys get all Finest volumes, just the ones you haven't read before or don't have already in other formats?
I've been getting them all. I don't have a very big DC collection as well, so I mean, I have the Killing Joke
Mm-hmm.
in the deluxe edition. That's one of the few DC books I have. So now I can get rid of it because I have this book here.
Yay, there you go. I get all of them, David. They are part of my contract with my boss over at Nearman Condition. I mean, I might have heard of him. His name is Omar. Part of that is you get to cover on his channel. I get to do him on mine, and it's a win-win because I get to have a show like this with Kurtis. So big thank you to Omar. Oddly enough, this isn't just a show, so I won't call it VFC. Um, yeah, pound for pound, this is the best Batman trade available. I will agree with you. Um, let's see. We could see Juju. Um, hey, Doug, good to see you. I was driving for most of this, and when Kurtis said he liked that writers were bringing back instances from 40 years ago and talking about some of the demon, I almost, almost wrecked. Oh no.
Doug's an old school guy. He loves his old school comics now, but I do enjoy it. Like, I love the new book Fantastic Four Full Circle by
Alex Ross.
Alex Ross
Yeah.
that came out, and he picks out this weird, obscure character from the early days of Fantastic Four and creates a new story about him. And it's like, that's so cool. I love it when they just like they find those little instances, and it's like let's explore that some more. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not great. Like the whole Clone Saga stuff was writers pulling out something from like 20 years before and like let's create a Clone Saga story. Maybe that didn't work out as well, but you got to try, and I like it when that happens.
Yeah, and yeah, when Grant Morrison's Batman eventually makes its way to DC Finest, we will have stuff to talk about that we will for sure pick up on threads made back by Mike W. Barr and Son of the Demon. Um,
Nice. Yep.
so yeah, we can't wait for that. If I read everything before I die, I'll see the Birth of the Legion in real time.
That's right.
Oh my goodness. Xbox by Degrees. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for
Yep,
tuning
thanks.
in. We appreciate it. Um Iron Man 10 Rings and Superman Kryptonite Nevermore next week. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
good week.
Good
Yep.
week indeed. Paul says Starlin's work on Batman is so underrated. He was so good at letting the images speak without any outdated Bronze Age narration telling us what was happening in the panels. There are, man, multiple instances. This was the same for the first volume too, which had some Dennis Cowan art too. Like the artists here, like again, Norm Brayfogle, Brian Bolland, obviously, um, Jim Aparo. Uh, there's so much strong art in this specific volume, man. It's crazy.
This issue here,
Yes.
414. You're talking about letting images speak without any outdated Bronze Age narration. This whole issue is heavy with Batman narration. Like it is loaded to the brim with Batman's thoughts all throughout. Like look at this. But I will say that it is all a really, really good read. Like all of those narration boxes, it's all Batman's inner monologue. That's this entire issue, and that's the point of this issue. Now, it is in contrast to the other stuff that Starlin does, because you're right, he is good at letting the images speak, but he wanted to do the narration in this issue in particular for a specific reason, and he does an excellent job of it. The having Batman, like having us walk along Batman as he's trying to solve this particular case of murders, um, is really, really well done. So while he does do a good job at not putting in the dialogue, he also does a great job with the dialogue when he deems it necessary. So that's the strength of Jim Starlin and his writing abilities.
Completely agreed. Let's see, James. No, man, I'm not on Justice Channel. This isn't Omnidog's vault. What are your predictions for the next Batman volume after the Golden Age DC Finest? Silver Age, Neil Adams, Death of Jason Todd.
Who knows? I mean, they're jumping back to do the last pre-crisis volume next, Red
Yep.
Skies.
So maybe, yeah.
And after that, then they're going back to the Golden Age with Volume 2, like you said. So who knows what they're going to do next? Um, I mean, I what I'm really hoping for is the follow-up to this, Death of the Family. Um, I'm really hoping for that, but who knows? If they might jump into something from the 70s maybe, and it's like, I'll take whatever they give us.
Completely agreed. I really would like that as well because I oddly fell in love with this version of Jason Todd in ways that I never expected. Because yeah, like MP says, like yeah, Death in the Family, you'll appreciate a lot more if you read everything leading up to it from the preceding 2 years. Yeah, I mean, Jason's a strong character. I can't say like in the times and I mean he's been directly involved with Batman's life, and also you get thrown in the wind when you find out, wait, there was somebody before me. This guy's been, and yeah, he's there's conflict there. There's conflict there between him and Bruce, and I can't. Yeah, the fallout of it is going to be incredible because I've read Death in the Family before. I've also read technically watched the adaptation of it with the Under the Red Hood movie because they also recap, whatever the comic in there. But Yeah, I can't wait for the 1988 to 89 volume, whatever that looks like. Let's see. Tom Collins says his call was automated, but he doesn't remember the exact sequence. Interesting. Pretty sure phone call costs money, and that wasn't allowed in my house. And yes, I can see Batman the Cult issues 1 through 4 being collected in here, or yeah, being
That's
collected in,
cool.
yeah,
I've
being
heard good things about that
the
one. I
cult,
haven't read it either.
the cult, like from what you're talking about with Jim Starlin, Kurtis, I think you're gonna love the cult. It is very raw and powerful stuff. I will say so. Yeah,
Hmm.
can't wait for you to get into there. Not only on top of that, with Dennis O'Neil being arguably the strongest editor that we've ever had in DC history, we should also appreciate Adrian Roy coloring all the monthly issues of Batman Detective, and yeah, I will agree with that, and we will have a lot to talk about when that comes around with the Batman Red Skies. Red Skies trade paperback. David says, I'm finishing year 1 and 2, and while I loved it, of course, year 1 is absolutely perfect. There were some issues in between. They thought it wasn't as great. Is the Killing Joke volume the same? I'm gonna say no to that. I found almost all the issues in here are straight bangers, David. Um, like we mentioned, like I think 5 times today, I really do think that DC didn't give the quote unquote other stories justice in the title, because the other stories that are included in here that aren't Killing Joke are just as strong, I think, as anyways they as Killing Joke. Um, and you also get the Son of the Demon, the original graphic novel, in this as well. So there's stuff in here that is going to be worth your time that isn't just the last 80 pages of the book.
Yep.
Um, let's see. This era of Batman Detective is so good. Dick Sprang Batman. I can only talk about what Mark Waid talked about with that era of DC. I have a Batman friend who has read everything from 1938 to 2018, and he really likes that era.
Wow.
I know he's like 2 years younger than me. I'm just like, he doesn't read anything but Batman. I'm like, okay. I mean, I can't hurt you there. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, very happy with that as well. One of the things I love about Epics and these fine is being able to read great stories. Completely agreed. Matt, Bronze Age Batman will be starting with 217, Detective 395. Film Watcher, how are you doing? Glad to see you tune into Finest Fridays. Love that homage they paid to Dick Sprang and a couple of other classic creators in Batman, in the one Batman the Animated Series episode.
Yeah, that was a great episode.
I agree. Um, One of my favorites. This book looks great. I completely agree, Matifer. I got all the DC Comics compact comics so far. Some of them, like Batman, American Vampire, and Catwoman, gets a book too. I have to ask, Film Watcher, have you gotten any of the Batman ones, or are planning to get some of the upcoming Batman ones, like Arkham Asylum, A Serious House, and A Serious Earth? Animated series. Man, I love that show. One of my favorites. um, would I prefer a Batman by Starlin Omni or a Post Crisis Volume 1 Omni? I think because of DC's like DC, I think tends to do, at least more often now. Maybe not more often now compared to previous years, but they have done a lot of creator centric omnibuses. So in my mind, like if they wanted to do like an Alan Grant and Norm Brayfogle Detective Comics Omni, or a Batman by Jim Starlin Omni, I don't think it would be out of their place to do it. But the Triangle era years omnibuses make me think that the possibility of a post crisis Batman uh, is possible. Like it's there. I just want to know, like, would they directly start on Batman 401 like we did with these DC finest? Um,
Well, here's the thing is that a Batman by Starlin Omni will sell. A Batman post-crisis Omni will sell based on those titles, just titles alone. But a Batman by Max Allan Collins or a Batman by Mike M. Barr may not sell as well because those names aren't as higher up
mhm.
in the tier of great Batman creators as Starlin. So if you want all those collected in Omni in oversized format, you're going to want to have a Batman post-crisis, specifically Volume 1, so that all of those issues can be in there.
Right. Yeah, I think yeah, I'd rather have that too. I think in that case because yeah, like if creator centric omnis, I mean Batman by Max Allan Collins Deluxe, I second chances. I don't know. It just doesn't sound well off the tongue compared to like, oh, the guy who did Infinity Gauntlet did a Batman run. Let me buy that. Um, so there you go. Indeed, Cyber Rats DC Finest. 2040 maybe. I don't know. Same Batman. Yeah, Batman TAS. Yeah, I agree. Justice League was great. Uh, yeah. Hopefully we can get the cult in for the next DC Finest. I think that would be pretty cool just to have that thrown in there. Um, yeah, Legends of the Dark Knight. And now I'm thinking that those are probably going to be different volumes compared to the DC Finest Batman. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, but that's
When did
most.
that series start? What year was that?
It's around this like 1980. MP, I know you're here in the chat. You're gonna correct me. I think yeah, same time as these series.
Okay, so the fact that they didn't include them in
Mm-hmm.
these volumes
Yeah, yeah,
makes you
1989.
think that they're not going to be in here.
Yeah, 1980. Yeah, 1989. So I guess like the volume after Death in the Family or Death in the Family and the Cult or whatever they decide to call it. I guess we will have, like 1989 in post. We will have to see how they decide to market those in terms of the title and what they decide to include. So I think after that, we will have to because yeah, after that, I mean, it's crossover after crossover in the 90s with Nightfall. Nightfall, No Man's Land, Contagion, like every single Batman event that I can think of, they're just running amok with all of those. We will have to see how they map because there is after 1989, there's a lot of series that they have to map out,
But
and
eventually, Legends of the Dark Knight starts becoming just one of the
1980.
regular rotation. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know that it's like um maybe not in out of continuity stories or whatever. But honestly, these stories are all like that too. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
had in the previous volume, we had Batman Year One, which doesn't follow the same, it's a story from the past. And we have the Jason Todd issues mixed up with the final Dick Grayson Robin issues, and so they could easily just give us a straight month of Batman or a straight year of Batman issues, whether or not it's the Legends or not. Especially because eventually the Legends just becomes another Batman title that just gets wound up with all of the Cataclysm and No Man's Land stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'd say stick them all in there.
So you say stick them all in there.
Yep.
MP says that he thinks that Legends of the Dark Knight will be its own DC Finest line because of the Batman books dedicated to telling earlier Batman stories. Because yeah, I mean the question is like how much do you stick? Because I mean these are 600-page thickums, right? They're not particularly small titles. I don't know if I would mind them either way, but to save money, I don't mind the I don't mind just the sticking them all in the Batman one. But I understand both
And
cases.
but if you do a standalone Legends of the Dark Knight DC Finest, then do you just stop the title once the
Mm-hmm.
issues become like part
Mm-hmm.
12 of Bruce Wayne
Right.
murderer, or do you have those whole stories in there, or like how do you deal with those issues that just become chapters later on?
I think because they also like in the case of say like we get to like mid 2000s Batman, right, where it's like, oh, we're getting like the black and white parts or the black and white like select like 2 or 3 pages that might like I think they've done a great job of not including stuff that doesn't need to be included. Like I'm thinking of like the Harley Quinn DC Finest, right, where you're only getting the Harley Quinn portions of the No
Yeah.
Man's Land run. We're gonna strip away everything else, just only focus on a Harley and Quinzel's uh, contributions to the event. I think they could do something like that where maybe they only include, oh, we only have these certain stories and they're going to be included in this because it makes sense with the rest of the volume.
Right.
So we shall see. Yeah, Matifer, I feel you there, man. Did you pick up the omnibuses by any chance? I know that I know that they're definitely not as cheap as the trades, but yeah, I mean it is what it is. Um, So yeah, Legends was folded in mainly briefly for Knights and Knights Quest, then for No Man's Land proper and War Games. So yeah, I think they could divvy it up, just depending on what type of books that they want to. So yeah, we shall see. But we also, real quick before we do end the stream, we do have some bookies to speak of in terms of all the stuff that's coming out next month. And of course, the aforementioned Kryptonite Nevermore will come out on the 3rd of June. And this will collect Action Comics 393 to 406, and Superman 233 to 238, and 240 to 246. This is I know this is a big one for the both of us. The next one is of course Catwoman, Vengeance and Vindication. This is the next volume up in the Jim Balent Catwoman era, collecting Catwoman 13 through 32 and Annuals 2 through 3, along with the issue that wasn't in previous solicits. This is an old graphic, but I know that the issue that we were asking if DC was going to add. Let me see if I can actually pull this up right here and right now. DC Finest. This will also collect the annual. Oh, there was a certain something, Kurtis, that they added. I don't remember what it was. My mind is slipping away from me. I know that they added a certain issue that was in the Jim Bale and Catwoman trades, but wasn't part of the original solicit. But anyways, I digress.
I don't remember. That character on the cover, though, standing behind Catwoman, that's the character we meet in Zero Hour, in the Catwoman Zero Hour issue. So we got a little bit of double dipping there.
We got double dipping because of the events. And last but certainly not least on the list, if you guys are reading Metamorpho like me, Al Ewing's Metamorpho anyways, there is going to be a Silver Age collection of Metamorpho in this specific DC Finest. This is DC Finest Metamorpho the Element Man, collecting issues Justice League of America 42, Brave and the Bold 57, 58, 66, 68, 88, and 101, along with his own series Metamorpho issues 1 through 17. And
really looking forward to this one too. All three of these books I think are going to be great.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. And yeah, more 90s Catwoman. Yes, indeed. And I think that is going to call it, we're going to call this an epic day for the both of us. We've had a lot to talk about in this month and round of DC Finest. And thank you also, guys, for watching. And if you haven't yet, please hit the like button so that YouTube can continue to push this up so that our conversations get to as many spots as possible. But Kurtis, as always, thank you so much for joining me on the last Fridays of these months. These have all been magical, and I'm really glad I was finally able to find someone to to talk about Batman with me this month. So thank you for joining with me.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, and can't wait to do it next month as well, when we have, I think it's going to be 3 good books with some 3 good discussion.
Yes, indeed. 3 good books for 3 good everything. Of course, you can check out those books and their contents at comicreleases.com. You hit the upcoming tab on DC if you want to. You can click on, well, it's pretty much every single DC book in the Idlewise catalog up till February of 2026. We also have a Patreon where for just $2 United States, we also do have some international Patreons. You can have a watch list that you can track these books. You could put in your tracking number. You can make sure that you not only get these books, we do have all of the links supporting wherever your retailers might be. And you also get to support me, etc., and to talk with other people. We also do have a Discord, and if also Kurtis has his epic and awesome group over at the DC Finest, speculating the new line of DC books, so be sure to join that for some epic discussions. And of course, the random unboxings that I always tune into at random select parts of the nights are always fun to watch and that is
I'm
Kurtis's.
gonna try and make that a regular thing on Monday afternoons at 3:30 my time, 3:30 Pacific. So it won't be as random. I'm gonna try and do them at the same time every week. So we'll see how that goes.
Yay! And we will see you guys the next time on the 27th of June is when we will be back on here on the Dom of X. But of course, you be you. Please stay safe, guys, and take care wherever you are.
Yeah, have a finest Friday, everybody.